Have you ever noticed that the more you understand, the harder it is to relate? It's strange how insight, something we're told to value, can sometimes feel like a curse. You try to explain an idea, offer a perspective, raise a question, and suddenly the room goes quiet. Eyes drift away. Topics change. You feel it. That invisible wall between you and everyone else. You're not imagining it. Throughout history, those who think deeply have often found themselves on the margins, not because they were wrong, but because they saw too much, too soon. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting minds. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake for suggesting the stars were suns. And even today, thinkers who challenge the status quo often face resistance, not applause. But why? Why does the world push back against depth? The answer is simple, but unsettling. Truth isn't always welcome. You see, when you speak to someone who's stronger, you might feel impressed. When someone is more beautiful or successful, maybe you feel inspired, or maybe a little envious. But when you speak to someone who thinks on a level you're not used to, something different happens. You feel exposed. Deep thinking doesn't just introduce new ideas. It acts like a mirror. It reflects back what others may not want to see. Their contradictions, their assumptions, their limitations. And that reflection, it's uncomfortable. Psychologists have a name for this: the cognitive mirror effect. It's when the presence of deeper insight inadvertently triggers insecurity in those around you. Not because you're trying to make them feel small, but because your questions unsettle their comfort. And comfort for most people is sacred. We live in a world that craves simplicity, quick answers, easy labels. When you start pulling at those threads, when you say, "But what if that's not true?" you're not just asking a question. You're threatening a structure. Think about your own experiences. How many times have you tried to have a meaningful conversation only to be met with polite smiles and silence? How often do people mistake your curiosity for criticism? It's not personal, it's tribal. Humans evolved in groups. For thousands of years, survival depended on harmony, not honesty. Standing out, whether through behavior, belief, or intellect, was risky. The nail that stood up often got hammered down, and that instinct remains. Our brains are wired not just for thinking, but for belonging. In group settings, being perceived as too smart, too complex, or too different can feel threatening to others. So what happens? You get avoided, or ignored, or labeled as too intense, too serious, or worse, too much. But here's the paradox. As society grows more connected, deep thinking becomes rarer. The digital world rewards speed, not depth. Viral sound bites beat thoughtful dialogue. Outrage outperforms insight. And in that climate, those who think slowly, deeply, and carefully are seen as out of place. So where does that leave the deep thinker? Alone? Maybe, but not without purpose. Because while deep thinking can isolate you, it also liberates you. You see the world for what it is, not just what you're told it is. You learn to ask better questions, to challenge assumptions, to think, not just react. That's a gift, even if it comes wrapped in solitude. Great minds throughout history didn't just endure isolation, they used it. They turned it into books, art, theories, movements. They channeled it into something bigger than themselves. So if you've ever felt distant in a crowd, if your thoughts take you places others won't follow, if you've learned that silence often says more than words, you're not broken. You're just tuned into a frequency most people don't hear. And maybe that's not loneliness. Maybe that's clarity.